Oh, okay. The next part will be live, but on YouTube. And it kept on doing all these things.
Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today. I would just like to start properly at 12. So Michael has joined us. Welcome Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited to kick off and share knowledge with you. The session will be recorded for everyone who's not able to join us live, and we will go live in 2 minutes. So thank you very much, and we see you soon.
Please.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm just going to kick off with some introductions. So today our webinar's theme is exploring the various career paths that are available to law graduates in South Africa. Thanks to everyone who's joined us online today. I hope that you are using your lunch hour productively and you're going to learn a lot out of this webinar. So my name's Alison Laxton. Just a brief introduction. I'll be your host today. I'm an admitted attorney and currently work at Regenesis as the CEO of the law school, and I also work as the legal officer here. To introduce my colleagues, I've got the head of the law school, Advocate Kevin Malunga. He is also our principal, and he is a really esteemed legal professional. He served as the former Deputy Public Protector and has also managed a governance advisory firm that consulted with state organs on investigations, upskilling, conflicts of interest, corporate governance, and alternative dispute resolution. So Kevin is well respected here. We're very delighted to have him heading our law school up, and we're sure that he will bring much knowledge to you as well. Now let's move on to our fantastic panelists that we have with us today. And if they can all pop their videos on, the king of guests, and he joins us today, He has with big names such as LexisNexis and Juta, managed various African law reports, and has spent many years deeply immersed in our court judgments and for building collaborations that help lawyers across the industry excel and succeed areas. Michael Murphy, just as an attorney specializing in employment law with a particular matters with 30 years of experience. What Michael Murphy is most well role as the legal counsel for the Premier Soccer appointed as chamber officer and has sporting tribunal international and esteemed and publications such as and seminars for his clients on the upcoming legislative developments of sports and employment law. So welcome to you, Michael. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. Next up, we have Advocate Kundi Ramashia Dube, and she read Beauty and Brains. She holds a Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in law, as well as an LLB from the University of Johannesburg. In 2013, she is more than qualified as a divorce and family mediator. She was also formerly employed at Hogan Lovells, where she gained experience in commercial litigation, labor law, family law, housing, and refugee work. As the legal advice officer for a project of probono.org, and she was also a lecturer at a private institution specializing in the law of persons and family law. She's also got 4 years of experience, having had worked at the Family Advocate, and will be going back into private practice as an attorney. Not only that, but she's got a passion for culinary skills and a passion for good food, and she can be seen to be expressing her wonderful skills on her blog known as kundiskitchen.com, which she started in 2016. So welcome, Advocate Kundi. It's a pleasure to have you on board with us. Then I'd also like to introduce our Vice President for Blind SA, and that is Advocate Christo de Klerk. He's an esteemed advocate who practiced between 1973 and 1979, and we are really, really lucky and have you on board. And not least, we have Mr. Logan Ramotlo, really quite the entrepreneurial package. He completed his articles of Weber Wenzel and is as a legal counsel for a company known as 21st Mind, which is an IT tech company in Botswana. He's also an LLM graduate and entrepreneur, having founded university consultants and company that students and graduates throughout South Africa. He's also well known for his engaging radio channel termed Logan Radio SA. This is an informative channel that keeps South Africans on their toes with regards to various available opportunities. He further founded Logan Embassy Holdings, which serves the various sectors of the economy in sales, logistics, and retail of our panelists. So we're going to kick off with some questions now. You know, what is it that everyone here actually does, and how did you sort of end up getting into your respective fields? So everyone here has studied law, and I'm sure there's many graduates online now who are thinking, well, what am I going to do with my LLB once it's done? What can I actually take? So I'm going to just turn to each panelist to give me a quick walkthrough of how their career path has looked. So we're going to start with perhaps Louis, if you want to take us through your career journey as the king of case law, and we'll move on from you.
Oh, thanks, Alison. No, I actually got into law by default because I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, but my granddad had been an attorney and my dad was an attorney. So I kind of, at the end of matric, I just decided, oh, what the heck, I might as well just do law. So, yeah, I think I initially found law, I was part of that LA law generation. And when you hit the reality of it, you realize, especially Durban Regional Court, you just realize how much admin there is and what a grind it is. So I ended up going into insurance, and then I found my way into law reports at Utah. And after that, I went to Lexus. And that's where I found my happy spot, because extremely lucky, because I don't do any admin at the master's office. I just get to engage with the end product of everyone else's hard work, which is the judgments. So I just deal with the pure case law, and we're just very lucky because since I left Lexus, we started our own case law operation. There's just 3 of us, and we've very much digitized all of our processes. So the 3 of us just purely work on case law. So we're very lucky, and we actually summarize and categorize and process 14 cases a day for our customers. So we're just totally immersed in it, and we're very privileged to do it, especially with the great and varied writers we have on the bench now.
Thank you, Louis. So Louis, you run Louis Case Law, and this is one of the fantastic resources available to legal professionals. So for those of you on this webinar, please do check that out. Louis is the king of case law and has been known as the king of case law for quite some time. So Louis, thank you for sharing that with us. And I think it's quite interesting how you say your grandfather was a lawyer and your father was a lawyer, and they always have this saying, lawyers breed lawyers. So it's also the results of that too. So thank you for sharing that with us. Michael, if I may move on to you now, if you can just give us a quick run through of your legal career history, which is also extremely prominent and exciting.
It's long. I am old. When you were speaking, I thought, all that you're saying is Michael is very old. I'm only joking. I can top Louis' story. So I got into it exactly as Louis did because I wasn't sure what else to do. But I can beat you, Louis, that my grandfather is actually in the law report. He's the accused. Well, he was convicted of attempted murder. So if you're bored, look up Rex versus Murphy. I think it's 1935 or 34 CPD. That's my grandfather. So we had something to do with the law, but not as lawyers, more as the accused and or the guilty or whatever. My father was then a lawyer, and like Louis, I didn't know what to do, and I kind of thought I would do this thing. Every step of the way, I wanted to get out and do something else, but I kind of carried on. Then because I sort of, I was still back in the days of good old apartheid in South Africa, so I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, some sort of beginner, oppose the system somehow. And that's how I got into employment law, because we've moved on since then. But in those days, the one area where you could try and do the kinds of things that constitutional or human rights lawyers do today, before a constitution, was to labor law, because you had the unfair labor practice jurisdiction, which was quite new and it was developing, and it was quite exciting, and you could act for trade unions. So I did that. In doing that, and then I've jumped around between various law firms, which is another thing. Always practicing also, as Louis said, I think you mentioned, we all just practice. None of us actually can do it, we're still practicing. But in the midst of all of that, I brought a case which was known as the Coetzee case, which is the South African or African version of the Bosman case in Europe, which set aside what used to be called the retain and transfer system in professional football. For those who don't know, once a professional footballer signed, not even a contract, just signed a registration form to join a club, they could never leave, ever, unless they were bought out. That was challenged in Europe in the Bosman case. I challenged in South Africa. It succeeded. It's a reported decision in the Cape High Court at the time, called Coetzee v. Kamitas and others. But because of that, I then fell into sport, because everybody thought I was the ultimate beginner. Strange enough, in football, they like beginners. So and then I sold out and started acting for clubs. then sold it even further at night for the league, or the legal counsel at the league. So that's how we ended up today. But really, in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. Then I wanted to be, do something which, something that meant something to me, and I fell into what I'm doing today. And there's no career path for anyone to follow, excepting perhaps, do what interests you. Go mad, be reckless, and you might end up somewhere doing something you enjoy. And what I do today, I do enjoy. So that's me.
Thank you, Michael. That's a wonderful overview and very exciting career history as well. And clearly you have learned from your great grandfather or grandfather rather by not being accused in the law reports, but by setting precedent for us. So thank you very much. It's a lovely overview. I'm now going to move on to Advocate Kundi Rameshia Dube. If you would like to just give us an overview of your legal career and how you've ended up where you are today, which I think is such an inspiration for many women as well entering the legal industry.
Sure, thanks, Alison. I was laughing as Louis was talking about, or you as well, how lawyers treat lawyers. My father's a lawyer as well, and I swore as a child not to do law because he was always like, you must do law. So when I went to varsity, I studied anything but law, which was at the time marketing. I was just like any, mini, money, mo. And as fate or Murphy's Law would have it, I stumbled into a law class during my first year, and it happened to be law of persons. And I sat there and I was like, this is so interesting, and it's so applicable to daily life. And long story short, I had to go back home, tail between my legs, and tell my dad that I now want to study law, to his utter joy. So that's how I got into law. I did my articles at a large commercial firm, and decided after that I actually wanted to practice in a way where I felt like I'm actually touching people's lives and, making a difference. So I went from there to probono.org, which is a legal NGO, and I headed up the Community Advice Office Support Project. It was very interesting going from, where everything is done for you in a cushy environment to running around doing everything yourself, but also very fulfilling. And then I moved from there to lecturing, and I did law of persons and law of family, which I enjoyed a lot. It's so nice to connect with young minds that, are still trying to figure out this law thing out, and can I do it? And so many big textbooks, and, so it was very nice to connect on that level. I went from there to private practice, and from there to the Office of the Family Advocate. I think the common string that has run through my career is my love for family law. I think I do enjoy the areas of law where you're really interacting with people and making a difference. And I think I've expressed that in different ways. I also recently started a YouTube page called The Legal Dish, just to answer many of the questions that young legal students and graduates were DMing me, on the socials, asking about, my legal journey. How do you get articles? How do you get into pupillage? What does a family advocate do, and all of that? So I would interview a couple of legal professionals so that, we try and answer those kinds of questions. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Advocate Kundi. So on top of your cooking blog, you've got what's called The Legal Dish, and I think that's such a nice
play on words.
Absolutely. And I think it's fantastic to have, advocates and legal professionals such as yourself who are so passionate about making a difference. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's very insightful. Next up, I'm going to move on to Advocate Christy de Klerk. If you would just like to give us a short overview of your legal career and also perhaps your current role at Blind SA.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I was born blind and attended School for the Blind in Worcester, now known as the Pioneer School. And at that stage, job opportunities were very restricted for blind people. Most blind persons became telephonists, and others went to England where they trained as physiotherapists. But I did not have the stomach for physiotherapy, so I decided to go to university and study law. I was always interested in litigation. It would be a fairly new thing because before my time, there had been only one blind advocate, Advocate Bowen, in the first half of the 20th century, was in Cape Town. I don't think he actually practiced. He was a politician, he was in Parliament. So I studied law, got my BA, LLB degrees, and then was admitted to the bar in Cape Town where I practiced. And I was admitted at almost exactly the same time as Zak Yacoub, of whom many of you will know, a very prominent former constitutional court judge. Then I practiced there. In 1974, I founded the Peninsula branch of Blind SA Cape Town and became its first chair. And throughout all the years, I remained with Blind SA, working as a volunteer, and I'm now the vice president of it. I practiced in Cape Town until 1979, when it became possible for blind people with the advances in technology to work with computers. And I got computer training, which really interested me. And I ended up eventually as an IT specialist at APSA, where I worked until my retirement, but I'm still continuing at Blind SA. Our particular interest there is looking at career opportunities for visually impaired lawyers. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Christy. And I think that is absolutely incredible. For anyone who is looking for inspiration and feels that they cannot achieve what they want to do, I think that you are someone who can really inspire that drive in them to say no matter what life gives you, you can make the most of those opportunities. And I think it's incredible what you've achieved, throughout your career. And a lot of people, I'm sure, will find it to be really inspiring. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm now going to move on to Mr. Logan Ramotlo, who is probably one of our younger panelists, very excited to speak about him and what he's done. So Logan, if you also want to give us a quick overview as to what you've achieved, and not just in a strictly legal space, but perhaps how your legal background has assisted you as an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, Alison. I'll just keep my video off because I'm having network issues.
No problem.
Yes, so my legal career has not been that very long. I just finished my LLB in 2017 and then completed my master's in corporate law. So that led me into joining Weber Wenzel Attorneys. So at Weber Wenzel, I was attending to various areas of the law. I started my first rotation with employment law. I then rotated into mine, health, and safety laws. Then I proceeded into doing capital market law. So it's
Sorry, Logan, we've lost you there. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to our next panelist quickly whilst Logan resolves his connectivity issues, and that is Advocate Kevin Maluka, who's currently heading up our law school. So Advocate Kevin, I'm not sure if you would just like to give us a quick overview of your very interesting legal career, and you've got incredible, public and state organ exposure, and we're very, very glad to have you on board with us here at Regenesis. So over to you, Advocate Kevin.
Thanks, Alistair. Well, I suppose as the fellow host of this event, I won't say much, but to say that we the thinking behind this webinar is also to try and ensure that people who, both Regenesis students and of course people in the profession, understand the dynamics of working in the law, and of course, we re-energize the conversations that affect the legal sector, because people have stereotypes about lawyers. It's become stuffy and boring. So we're trying to bring about excitement and interest in this. But that said, my own career has really been a very fascinating combination of my own efforts and also being headhunted for things. You know, I started off. I spent a year doing accounting at university. I didn't like it. I always knew I'd always had a passion for justice and public speaking and changing people's lives. And law really then became a great avenue. And as you see the injustices that are in the world, you gravitate towards it. I come from a political family, you know, so my father was a freedom fighter. So naturally, I would gravitate towards that kind of thinking. And law was a natural, you know, like it was really like a water to duck. And I found myself studying law. I did a BA law at the University of Swaziland. I did an LLB at the then University of Natal. And of course, you know, I was offered a teaching role at the then University of Natal, and subsequently got a scholarship to go and study an LLM at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., where I met people from all over the world who are still my friends today, who are lawyers. And then I came back to Natal, then I went to Wits, taught at Wits. Subsequently then worked in the private sector for a while as a legal advisor, and then was headhunted to join the Department of Justice as a state law advisor, and where we then set up the Office of the Chief Justice. And you know, I then moved on. After that, I was nominated and successfully became the Deputy Public Protector of South Africa for 7 years, where we worked on major investigations, Gandla, state capture, and others that we are well known for. So there's that ethics and anti-corruption ethos. So I try to infuse that in the way I think as a lawyer, to say, look, can we make lawyers more ethical? Can we build into that kind of anti-corruption thinking? Because, you know, there was a very sad story, and of course I can say it because it's public knowledge. Also, another very brilliant Georgetown law graduate. He was senior counsel, Seth Nthai. Remember Seth Nthai? He was a senior counsel. He was then found soliciting a 5 million rand bribe. I think that was about 10 years ago. And as senior counsel had many years of experience. And all that came tumbling down because of just one moment of lapse of judgment and greed. So we're always trying to say to lawyers, can you be ethical? Can you try and put it out there that there's so much money and living to be made ethically and honestly, and that's what we're trying to that's what we're going to infuse to the Regenesis lawyer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Advocate Kevin. And I think that speaks to really what we all want to achieve, is to not only transform the legal landscape and the various attributes that graduates have, and to develop them holistically in such a way that they have a positive effect on society, but also, to ensure that we have students who go out there and feel that they can change lives, and that the stereotypical lawyer stereotype, about how lawyers are unethical and expensive and greedy and terrible people, is really flipped on its head. And as our panelists here today have heard, a lot of our panelists have joined this, profession out of the interest of making a change and having a larger societal impact. And this sort of brings me to our next question, which I'm going to pose to my panel, is what challenges do you see and have you seen that graduates are encountering when looking for employment? And how are we going to change them mindsets and make them more employable? So what would some of my panelists like to contribute to this question as to essentially how do we make graduates, LLB graduates, law graduates more employable in this? Louis, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, Alison, I'm just giving a perspective. I don't really have a direct solution, but especially this year, we seeing be impacted by the load shedding. So even before that, we've been approached by so many articles. We know that it's extremely hard to find pupillage, to make it through pupillage. It's very, very hard in the beginning. And I mean, we're a little case law outfit, and we just get so many submissions. People are so desperate looking for articles or any kind of practical experience. So my concern is that this profession is oversubscribed. I think there's just too many people coming in. And at the moment, with the way our economy is looking, I don't know what the answer is, because we've seen that through our subscribers, because we have a lot of subscribers and we interact with them a lot. We really, since January, the massive impact on the market, because COVID was office closing and the court shutting down. Then if you can't get your matters to your income stream downstream, you're not going to have cash flow, and it's load shedding bad. So long term, lawyers need. So this kind of economic situation we're in at the moment, we need economic activity for disputes. We need disputes to generate. And run properly to actually generate to your lawyer's office. That's my perspective that I'm seeing right now, is that this year is going to be very hard for people. And I know there are options within in-house counsel and government departments, but yeah, maybe some of the other people have perspective. Certainly from our perspective, these first 2 months, we've seen a lot of hardship, even practicing practitioners.
Thank you, Louis. I'm going to now move on to our next panelists. So if we get to Advocate Kevin Malunga, and then if we can move on to Advocate Afi thereafter.
Okay, thanks, Alison. No, I put my hand up because I really thought I just wanted to continue with the Louis' thinking. I remember since I was in my last teaching role at Wits University, and there were quite a large cohorts of law graduates. And in my other various roles with the state and so forth, it became clear that there are a lot of who don't have jobs. And the emphasis really, there's been quite a lot of, to use the so what people should take away from this today is if you're a law student, don't be saying, you know, when you order a milkshake or of tea at a restaurant and it's bland, you never go back to that restaurant. So the same thing with lawyers. You've got to be that person who people, this person knows what they're talking about. This person has energy and they do, and they're exceptional. So I think the issue is really about exceptional people, exceptional graduates who are passionate about what. Now, if you get, people never forget the bad service they at a Pick and Pay or a Checkers, or cleans your house and leaves it dirty. You never forget that. You know, bad legal services. If someone wants to write shoddy documents, want to do half-hearted things, which is why, for example, made sure at some point that we insisted on people having proper skilling those who are challenging, who have a challenge with that. So it's really people who are coming into the profession, making sure that they, in terms of their attitude, if you just want to just roll over, that's not going to work. You have to make sure that person who people, you want to be that go-to person. You want to be that take seriously. You also want to be well-mannered, you know, etiquette in the profession, you know, the camaraderie. Don't be, just come to the fore that really make a difference, employable or not, and one actually gets to be the person that as their preferred lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Kevin. I'm now going to move over to Advocate Kundi and thereafter Michael Murphy.
Thank you, Alison. I think on the back of what Sandra has said, I've told this story before on my personal journey. I wasn't an A student. I knew that I'm coming out with graduates from different institutions, and my CV speak out for me. So what I always tell young graduates, active. I got up, I drove to Sand Drive. I was very shaky behind the wheel. I parked somewhere in the middle of nowhere to all the big firms, and I asked to see the HR director, so them their CV and get some screen time with them. Some of the receptionists looked at not how it works, and some let me see the HR director. Eventually, through one of those interactions, I got back work, and then I was asked to. So stand up and be proactive. I think, you know, an entitled is not going to get anyone anywhere where you're up against thousands of other people. And secondly, what I'd also say is that once you've gotten your foot through and you're in an organization, as Advocate Malunga said, stand out. Person that is remembered. Because again, in my personal journey, 3 of the jobs that I've had back have always been someone that I either worked with or a superior saying, listen, I've moved to this place, please come and apply. Would love to have you there. It's going to happen if you were sloppy and slouchy and not interested, you know? So put your best foot forward, stand out, be the person that offers to do things, really open up doors for you. Thirdly and lastly, I also want to tell be open-minded. I know a lot of us are taught that articles and that may be the best case scenario at times, but if you're not privileged, be open-minded and look for other opportunities. Maybe it's working in an organization for a year or two just to get experience, so that when you apply for your you've actually done or been involved in a few family law matters or in process. Look around if you know a legal person or an advocate or whatever. You may not have space for pupillage, but are you looking for some skills while you're doing that? I've just written down some notes. Look for internships at organizations in the legal department. You may not earn much, pick up some, legal terminology and how things work, and that's something good to add. You then, are looking for articles or whatever the case is. Attend open ever at your institution where you're studying. Start talking to people. So just be open-minded and don't think that if you don't get articles, so there's other legal parts as well, such as compliance. You don't necessarily need to do your articles. Go look for those kinds of things, and you are traversing these different paths that I'm actually more interested in, or your career may open up in that particular way. Also look at I worked at the Office of the Family Advocate. There's the office, there's the NPA and all of that. So I think there are opportunities, all just trying to shove ourselves into the same little tunnel. I think those are the few points that I could share.
Thank you, Advocate Christy. To Michael Murphy to give us his thoughts on the question.
Thanks. I tend to be flippant about all these things, so let me try to say something which I'm listening. I think the first thing that the big South African issue right now, it might be a world issue, but it's certainly our issue, is that all those levels of inequality are there. It's very, very hard. Service professions, even if you're good at what you do, you either end up in a large law firm charging millions and millions of rand for doing very little, or so we talk about doing meaningful work, for example, for communities and so you can't afford to pay you, and if you come from an impoverished background yourself, it's real the way to do the work. So let's not underestimate how hard it is to the lawyer that you might want to be. That's the first thing. The next thing, as I was thinking, this is bored. Look up or Google. There's a guy, he's a professor. I think and he's written 2 books. The one is The End of Lawyers, or the other one is The New Lawyer. And basically, but a lot of what he says is true for us here, probably even more so because of what he says. He was saying already, the day of the kind of, with this kind of pyramid structure, we have lots of people at the bottom charging massive fees, and all of that is over because clients won't put up with that anymore, and also because they can't afford it, and because there's less of them. He writes a lot about technology and the changes that has brought about and wrought. This book is quite negative, basically saying that the day of the large law firms is a good thing, but it also talks about being a bespoke over. But the new lawyer, he's then talking about looking at ways you can do up there, a lot of that you can look at, a lot of opportunity to do differently. Then just one positive, and it's what I think what everybody else has been saying, do what you do with passion. Certainly when you're younger and you're fearless and you're not driven by the same kind of overheads as you might have, that's the time to do things with passion, aggression, follow what you're interested in, and you'll be surprised me. Then just a couple of practices follow. I spend more time in the pub than studying, I have to admit that, so I certainly but I do think you have to accept now, Whitey in the old days. Now, you do have to work hard. You should be focusing on the quality of the school that you're going to, the university or school, because in law firms, I've been in there, helping out, selecting article content. They put aside certain universities. Let's be honest, there's no use pretending. And they certainly look at the higher marks. Then I think, as I said, if you get in there or anywhere else properly. When I had a team at a large law firm I was at, I used to say to some of the who used to keep bringing me their travel expenses, I would say, well, you can do every client we have. You can focus on the travel expenses and recovering your petrol fees. Be a partner at this firm, and you probably won't be kept on after articles. So focus on the work, show that cares, and if you don't do that, you won't get anywhere. Still, on the slight one other positive note, I think there's a massive advantage to doing law, and I did it. But so now I do work in football, right? And I'm not doing all sorts of things. But there's a big advantage. So let's say in football or sport generally, they have administrative tribunals, administrative decision making. They have tribunals. Sport is rules based, and I'm sure it's true in many books of life. There's a massive advantage to having done law. Whether it's a good thing to think like a law, but it certainly gives you an advantage in these things. So when you're in that environment, you can be practicing as a lawyer within that environment. You can always grow out of it, but you'll have a massive over other people who don't have those skills. So I don't know. Hope there's something worthwhile.
Thank you, Michael. I think there's a lot of very important points you mentioned there that people can take away. I'm now going to move over to Advocate Christou, and then I see we have another hand. We'll then wrap up the answers on this question. So over to you, Advocate Christou.
Thank you. Yes, some very good points have been made. I agree with them. I want to look at the point of view of a lawyer with visual impairments. We have an issue that we've often encountered. I don't want to call it discrimination. It is rather a lack of what we can do. Many methods of doing things that people don't know about. Technology is an advanced great degree, and it can assist us to do things that people do not really understand. We have to make people aware. We become lawyers because we know we can. We become lawyers because we know we can. This in various jobs. Saloma, who is a blind lawyer, worked in 27. I already mentioned Zach Yakub. She is commissioner of the Human Rights Commission, and go on. But I think many people might not be aware. And it has become so much easier to become a lawyer now than way back when, because then there was almost, and if Judge Zach and I could do it in the 70s, like it now. So we need to drive a particular campaign to create more awareness so that there is for blind lawyers.
Thank you, Advocate Christou. I'll move on to Logan. Logan, I see you've also got your hand raised.
Thank you very much, Alison. I think when it comes to candidates, speak directly to those who will be looking for articles of clerkship, candidate attorneys. I think it's very much difficult for one at this particular time, particularly where you are a student. So I want to emphasize the point that as a student, you must be in university. Don't just be a student who's only studying, but also involved in various organizations within a university. For instance, many we call a moot court club That is basically a club wherein students how to present themselves in the court of law, and they will also be working on hypothetical of that. Now, majority of our principals within law firms are paid to just employ a candidate attorney or just a researcher with articles, whereas that student knows nothing. That student is not able to apply, the theory to the. So I think it all starts with being very much active and taking all the opportunities which are being presented within the university. And I'd also like to advise the students not to only wait until they've graduated and then it is then that they commence to look for articles of clerkship. Already there are so many graduates within the same level as you look at clerkship, and we have a very limited number of law firms. I'll give an example with my I secured my articles of clerkship in one of the big 5 law firms. Still in my 3rd year of university. So what did that take? That basically took me obtaining very high marks, working very much hard, big extracurricular activities within the university, like the example which I gave of Moot Court Club. Also going out there during university holidays and not just merely but go and volunteer, do some vocational work within this law. And that's how they get to know you, become proactive, and that's also how you also gain some experience. And when you put all of that into your curriculum vitae, it is something which make you different as compared with other candidates. So I think that's basically what could assist my into becoming employable. And just to add one last thing again, I think we also need some sort of awareness as to the different laws there. I think we are basically exposed to minimal things. Then I only got to learn about equity capital markets when I touched my LLB degree. So I think also institutions have to take the opportunity. Some of these big law firms, some of these various offices, to come and educate the students about the different legal paths in order for them to also become employable. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there are some really great pieces of advice to pull out there for anyone wanting to study law and knows not what they're going to do. So you're feeling quite confused and overwhelmed. And this brings me to my panelists, which is what changes would you like to see that will enhance and create opportunities for LLB graduates? That you feel should be implemented, or some advancements that in order to rectify some of the issues that we've been seeing, of which the notable one is how difficult it can be to secure articles of clerkship. And that question over to my panel.
Can see this weekend. Really season.
You've got your hand raised.
I think this is just a quick and practical that maybe we can implement at law school level. Is I think if I more legal practitioners coming in, it's once a month or once a semester or whatever, in different areas of the law to journey and what they do, just to have practical what the options are. I think that's just one suggestion.
Thank you very much. Do any of my other panelists have some suggestions that enhancements should be made, or maybe different opportunities that we can try and create our LLB graduates? I see we have another hand raised. Do we have another from Logan?
Thank you, Alex. I think as an institution which are offering the LLB program, they ought to collaborate with various law firms, such that, say for instance, if Regenesis has round T final year students in the LLB program, then they get to do and send them out there to do their practicals in those law firms. And I think that may be one of the ways in which we could basically out there into realizing the opportunities which. The other thing which I find a bit much problematic, particularly for graduates who are coming from the unfortunate backgrounds, is the issue that practical legal training, which is your law school, there is a particular amount paid, and it's quite a bit expensive. So an issue they can go about it. It's something which keeps some of the graduates progressing with their careers. Some of them do not afford in order to attend a practical legal training. So I don't know basically how that can be the Legal Practice Council, because it is some for them to securing to actually being admitted as attorneys. Yes, that's basically what I think also be considered.
Thank you, Logan, and you make a good point there, and it's something touched on is the inaccessibility of the legal industry from previously disadvantaged backgrounds. There is an expensive, a huge cost incurred to study a law degree, to set up a law firm, to legal training, to attend practice management training. All of these things substantial amount of money, and when you come from a previously disadvantaged background, this is a. So I'm just going to hand over to Advocate Malunga. He had his hand up, and thereafter mine.
Okay, thanks, Alison. No, I'm just adding on to what they've said, but Logan is right on the money. We are implementing at Regenesis, and people are looking at the face of the implementer. That's the running that particular project of ensuring that who is fit for purpose. It is practical. There's a law located within law school, of course. We are located in the hub of Sandton, right next to all the economic activity and the legal activity. So certainly there will be a lot of partnerships. And I've insisted from day one that this is that it is a degree that let me put a rider there that in terms of if you want to put in the work, you want to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you, you will be able to benefit from all those as a Regenesis graduate and as a student, etc. We obviously will be having those kind of partnerships, etc. But also people from the profession teaching on the already have people who are now teaching on the program. So it's not going to be. I think people have asked why should I raise that has never been no one has ever done this. This is not it's not a fly by night. First and foremost, it is accredited, the Council on Higher Education, and in South Africa that alone is enough. Registered by the South African Qualifications Authority, of which I was a board 5-year board member. And of course, our launch was endorsed by the Legal Practice Council. The Legal Practice Council was in attendance and spoke at the launch in December. So those are all those dynamics that, as I've spoken about it, the fact that you've got to put yourself out there, you can't get a job by sleeping all day. You've got to apply somewhere. You've got to do something. So likewise, we're very much passionate about. It's not going to be more of the same. A lot of these law firms, law schools are in the sense that they just give people cases and statutes, you pass, you know. So that's not what this is going to be about. But is that even because I know there's some Genesis people, students who are watching this, it's not going to be a free ride. It's not going to be one of those, programs where we're just going to give it to you. So, but I'm passionate about access to justice, and certainly I see people. We're going to be having a lot more of these webinars. It's not just for but for the entire public. There are many webinars that are coming up with at the end of the program today because of the law. But I think that's the issue is really, that blend of experience, people getting to know what's happening in the profession. You can never be driving if you've never driven a car. Of course, it happens through corruption, but the reality is that you're supposed to learn how to drive first. It's the same with this. You're more likely to get a job if you've shown that you are fit for purpose.
Thank you, Advocate Kevin. I'm now going to move on to Mike to give us their thoughts.
I'm probably going to be all over the place here, but I think you asked making it easier for, let's say, for allies to get work. And first of all, I think what Logan's issues, some of which I probably don't know about, those need to be looked at with great care. Get more lawyers, I think, despite the inequality issues and the cost and affordability, people out there to serve a massive need. I mean, we've got a massive need for legal service. The only problem with it is the inequality issue and affordability. But if you keep through cost issues, those should be looked at very, very carefully and aggressively, and they should be taken up and so on, I think. But I want to look at it like this from a slightly different suggestion. You talk about change. So if you look at the area which I'm then or worried about is evictions. So in law, despite we've got some incredible associations, as people know, like SERI and some of the anti-eviction campaign, landless people's movement, all sorts of those. All around the country, there are hundreds and hundreds of people by magistrates just stamping a document, right? And that's happening despite the fact that the court and high courts have said, because they don't get the opportunity to place the facts and circumstances before the court, and they are treated in a gross, a lot of personal experience of that. So there is this massive need by lawyers at the moment, right? And which also do a wonderful job, can't get to all of them. So we need more people. So how do we get more people that are able to serve? Maybe it links into something that you were saying, and I was just thinking, you can't reduce ability and levels of too far, because everybody says, of course, not fair for somebody who's poorer to get a ropey lawyer versus someone who is, who isn't. No lawyer at all is a lot worse in this kind of a context. So what changed? Well, I haven't followed this up very much, but I know that in the United Kingdom, they have like a lesser qualification. It's called a legal executive. Maybe it's up front so that it's easier to get admitted in some way, maybe say evictions, or and be able to charge for it. You would be charging lots of people very often already struggling But look at it a bit differently, because our model of the lawyer, I think, is pre-Professor Susskind. We think of the model of, if you're an attorney, it's the senior partner of Bowman's or Weber Wenzel or ENS, all aspiring to. I don't think that model really works in South Africa at all, other than that's all or a bank. So we need to look at a different model, I think. And yeah, so that's just a thought. I'm not really sure these things in what is the most unequal society on earth.
Thank you, Michael, and I fully agree. I think you made some fantastic points there about, just how there is such a need for legal services in South Africa and access to these, which are often unaffordable, or those who render them to the public just do not have the capacity to take it on. Louis, I'm going to move on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, just on getting experience and getting your foot in the door, I just wanted to recount an amazing thing that happened a few years ago when I was at LexisNexis, because I know a lot of people that they want to have sort of internships or shadowing or something from like Weber Wenzel or ENS to put on their CVs, but you can get really, really valuable experience by interning or getting employment in something that's like adjacent. Like at Lexis, we took on this huge project. We wanted to build an index of criminal cases from 1910 to like 2018. It was too big. So what we did is we hired 16 law graduates from KZN, and we with a little bit of training, they worked on the index, which was editorial, sort of, it had a legal flavor into it, but I mean, it was nothing to do with legal practice. But the results were absolutely amazing. We managed to get out an incredible product, but what was really, really important was that these graduates were able to put this experience on their resumes, and they were able to use us as a reference. And subsequent to that, even recently, that was years ago, I've still been doing a lot of references for them. And a lot of them have secured jobs, and I've gotten calls. That is so, so important that I can just recommend to LLB graduates that just get any kind of work on your CV, even if it's not particularly related to a law firm, because I didn't actually believe in that until we did this project. And we've had the most incredible feedback from some of these law graduates that they've just been able to get their foot in the door by having that little extra bit of experience on their resume, and to have somebody to call as to their character and how hard they work. That was so important for some of them, and they gave me that feedback, is that it made or break the application just to have someone in a big company that they've worked for, that they can vouch for their diligence, that they pitched up, that they actually did work very hard, and that they were ethical. It can make a really big difference. So yeah, that's all I can say is just get some experience as close as you can to anything in law. It could be banking, shipping, anything related that you can fill out and make sound good on your CV.
Thank you, Louis. I think that's very insightful as well. And this brings me to my next question for the panel is, we've spoken about what changes we'd like to see and perhaps how we tell you to increase your employability. But are there opportunities that you have seen people actually missing, completely missing and not considering? And I know Advocate Kundi touched on those quite briefly, but is there something in the market that you see as a niche or perhaps a gap that some NLB graduates should actually be looking at? And Louis touched on that quite nicely, in that there are internships out there, for example. But are there any other sort of gaps that the panel would like to bring to the attention of the panelists today that could help them get their foot in the door and perhaps take them to the next step in their legal career? I see Logan's got his hand raised.
Thank you, Alison. I think majority of LLB graduates, they either just want to become an advocate or just want to become an attorney. Now, if you do your research pretty much well, our courts, the High Courts, the Supreme Court of Appeal, or even the Constitutional Court, they're always looking for clerks. And the only thing that they require of you is only for you to have an LLB degree, and they give you that opportunity. So you become much more exposed, the same way a candidate attorney would be exposed to the practice of the law, merely only just being the clerk of the court, because that is where you'll be assisting the judges when they're doing their judgments, researching various case law, see how the law is being applied from a perspective of a judge. And you're also exposed to the court proceedings as to what is happening and all of that. And the other opportunity which I also have to take as an LLB graduate is for you to go out there, become a legal advisor. It can be in an insurance company. It can be anything related to tax advisory, just using the knowledge which you've collected from your LLB degree. What you ought to always remember is that you are an inexperienced individual trying to gather experience. So you just need to expose yourself to all of that. And law firms, majority of law firms have got work, but they do not have the money to pay you. You have to take advantage of that. By doing what? By going out there and just volunteering. I really believe that could actually open doors for you, because even though you're just volunteering, you'll be exposed to other legal practitioners who can then take you in at a fee and everything else. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Logan. And I think that that is so important to note, and we've spoken about it here today, is really putting yourself out there. And there is a massive disconnect at the moment between LLB graduates and what really happens out there in the legal world, and the various channels that you can approach. Don't just think of a private sector job where you want to go into a company perhaps, or a private law firm. There are plenty of initiatives out there in the public sector as well, and there's plenty of opportunities, and you just might have to change your mindset as to, well, this is part of my journey, and I'm going to take these additional steps. So I'm going to move on to one of my last pieces of discussion for today, and this might be a more personal question to the panel, and that is, if there is one piece of advice that you can give to anyone right now studying law, what would it be? And this could be a piece of advice that you wish you would have been told as a young, aspiring legal professional. So I'm going to pose that question to my panel, and let's see what that advice would then be. Advocate Kundi, I see you've got your hand raised.
Yes, thanks, Alison. I think my one piece of advice, encapsulates a lot of what's been discussed today. And at the point where the legal students are now, starts there. So what can you do from now? And that is becoming involved. Become involved in your institution. Ask questions, as I mentioned earlier, attend open days if those are there. Logan mentioned, being part of, if there's like a moot court or whatever at your institution. So immerse yourself as in the position that you're on now, so that these are things that you can include in your CV, which will make you stand out from the crowd. And also try to be, even though you need to focus on your studies and do well and get the requisite marks, but be involved in situations or activities or organizations where your leadership skills can be shown off. So I'd really say start now, thinking about how you can build your CV so that you can stand out at this stage already and already start to gain experience in the work world.
Thank you, Advocate Kundi, and that is so true. As a lawyer, we don't just practice law. You're also a counselor for your clients. You have to put yourselves out there. You have to make sure that you are a salesperson in some respect, because what makes you better than the rest? So it's very important to develop your other leadership skills. And that's something we touch on here at Regenesis. And what Regenesis is founded on is actually a holistic development model of the individual. So like she says, go out there, put yourself out there, go and volunteer, put yourself out into the community, because everything you partake in will develop those skills. I'm now going to hand over to Louis, and then I've got Advocate Christo next up.
Yeah, my one piece of advice would be, when you go into legal practice and even at candidate attorney level, you've got to remember that this legal community is small. In South Africa, the number of lawyers is small, and people stay in this for a long time. So everybody knows each other, and at some point or another, when you engage with your opponents, whether it's in litigation or over the phone or in court, you're going to meet that opponent later. So my strongest piece of advice would be to always be respectful and be humble, because I've come across so many instances where in a particular moment somebody was sarcastic or rude, or they tried to strong arm the opposition if they saw a short-term advantage, a tactical advantage, and they pulled a dirty on the opposition, or they just behaved badly or arrogantly in court or even outside court. Don't. Just always be humble and respectful, because later it will come back and bite you. And that person you were rude to or unfair to, or you pulled the dirty because you had the opportunity to please your client, in a year's time or 5 years' time or 10 years' time or even 20 years' time, the tables will be turned and that person will remember it, and you'll suffer for it. Just remember that this community is relatively small and everyone knows each other, and you will come across people later, and it's far better to have a reputation as somebody who's fair and who's respectful than to secure a short-term win by pulling some tactic. And sarcasm is a huge no-no. I've some shocking correspondence where I don't know what possessed people to be sarcastic in their correspondence, but people remember that enduringly. So yeah, that's my advice. Be kind and be humble.
Thank you, Louis, and that's so crucial. Law is a very small community, especially in South Africa, and it's so important to make sure that you present as someone who's ethical, you play fair, you play by the rules, and you respect the courts and your colleagues. Advocate Christo, I'm going to move on to you.
Thank you. 2 points. Courtroom dramas are sensationalized. Don't ever be persuaded by those to become lawyers. The reality is most of the time very different from what you see in those TV dramas. Do your research. If you want to study law, go and visit courts, sit in courts, try and gather all kinds of information about the vast area of the law before making the decision. The second one is keep your work at work. Don't bring it home to your family. You know, my cousin and her husband are both lawyers at separate firms, and that sometimes leads to disaster at home, slamming doors and that sort of thing. So just keep it at the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Christo. And I think it's so important as well, like Advocate Christo said, to leave the drama at the office, and to when you get home, you leave that at home. And that can be something that's very difficult for legal practitioners to obtain, is a work-life balance. Logan, I'm going to move on to you, and then Michael thereafter.
Thank you, Alison. I think in the legal profession, it's not always just about what you know, but who you know. So I think it's pretty much important for you to work on creating relationships, not only with other fellow legal practitioners, but also with other people in other various fields, because that's basically where your work is going to come from. And whenever you receive an instruction, just always ensure that you do it excellently well, because you're going to need all those referrals. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Logan. Michael, over to you.
Thank you. So what Louis is telling you all is that the most important thing is integrity. So the sooner you learn how to fake that, the better for you. I'm joking. He's absolutely right, and not only in respect of colleagues. You know, I often think when I was a young, reckless lawyer, and you're feeling a very aggressive, let's say you're representing someone who's being really hard done by, but you can say things, let's say in correspondence or in pleadings or affidavits in a polite way, and be just as tough, or you can be rude and snotty and sarcastic. And always remember that at the end of the day, you're trying to impress a judge if you're in litigation. And the judge picks up on that. And if you can frame it, if you listen to Wim Trengove speak, he's always polite, but he's being just as aggressive as anybody else. And that's something to learn. It's a skill. So you shouldn't fake it. You should actually do it. I'm just probably showing my age, but for me, the greatest skill that I learned was how to type. I was a young guy traveling and working, and I was a security guard guarding an underground car park that no one ever came to. And I bought a typewriter. These are days before people had computers on their desk, and only the secretary would have a typewriter. And I taught myself to type out of a book, and I know nobody has that problem anymore. But learning to type well, fast, quickly, beautifully, make your letters look beautiful, and being able to do that yourself is a massive skill. People who meet me think I'm a computer whiz because I can type so well or so fast. I know nothing about computers. I'm very old. I'm lost. But that skill, I would say, while you are working, you're working on your studies, work on your ability to communicate and work on your ability to reduce that to writing. And writing now means typing, although it's a lot easier than it used to be.
Thank you, Michael. And I think that that's so true. Is basic things that we take for granted that a law firm will demand of you is how to draft a letter properly, how to properly format a document, how to type quickly and efficiently, how to use a computer, how to access our online resources, and even our older resources like a law library, a hard copy law library. Do you know how to find the answer? And I just want to share a bit of advice that was always stuck with me, and it was given to me by a senior partner at Flaxmans, and they said to me, you don't need to know everything. As a lawyer, or as an attorney, or an advocate, or wherever you find yourself, you will always feel in the legal field that there is more to know, more to learn, and that you will feel lost. That's part of doing this job. That's part of being in this industry. What is important, though, is to know where to find the answer and how to present that answer well. And so making sure that you are able to find the answer and be solutions driven is incredibly important as a legal practitioner, and something that you can start early on with by making sure that you have a problem-solving mindset and that you familiarize yourself with how to do things. So make yourself familiar with the online resources. Make sure that you know how to do legal research. Make sure that you know how to give those answers to your clients one day. And that's essentially a really important skill to develop as well. So I just want to thank all of my panelists and colleagues for joining me on this webinar today. We're very excited to be launching this webinar series on behalf of the Regenesis Law School, and we're going to have some very exciting panelists every few weeks join us for very topical discussions, or hot topics as we like to call them. We're also very excited to have launched our LLB degree here at Regenesis this year. We are busy with our first intake. Our second intake will start from next week. And we want to assure everyone joining us for this journey that we would like to adequately prepare you for the legal industry. And wherever your career journey may take you, we hope that we can instill some of those fantastic graduate attributes into you to make sure that you stand out as a Regenesis graduate. So thank you to all of my panelists today for joining us. They're very busy professionals and their time is their money, as they say about lawyers. Time is money, so make sure you use it wisely. To Advocate Malunga, thank you very much for joining us. We're very excited to have him steering the law school as well. To Louis, the King of Case Law, thank you very much for sharing your valuable insight with us. And please do check out Louis Case Law for those of you looking for legal resources as well. Louis's got a very robust and very speedy team, it seems, who are masters at analyzing our cases. Advocate Kundi, thank you very much for joining us today, sharing your family law experience. And we are so looking forward and hoping that you'll come on board and do some lectures with us as well. And all the best in your new venture as you leave the family advocate and go back into private practice. Michael, thank you very much for sharing your very interesting background with us on, the soccer leagues, sports, entertainment, as well as your history in employment law and how that had a constitutional perspective. Advocate Christou, we think what you've achieved is phenomenal and you really are an inspiration. Nobody can have any excuses to not achieve what they want to achieve with Advocate Christou's story given today. And thank you to Logan as well. We appreciate you joining us. It was lovely to have a young entrepreneur who's really put his foot in everything. And I think Logan can safely say he's a risk taker and we wish him all the best with his ventures as well. So thanks to all my panelists for joining. Thank you to all of my attendees. I don't know if there are any questions. We can just open up the questions for 5 minutes and open that up to the panel or to the attendees here today. And we hope that this has been a really insightful and valuable webinar to you all. And just a reminder for those who have joined us perhaps late and you had lunch, run overtime or a meeting, this will be recorded and made available. Advocate Kundi, I see you've got your hand raised before we wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. I just wanted to also just say thank you to you. I think this is a really good platform that you guys have created. And I also just want to say to the students that did actually take time to log in and to listen, they could have been doing anything else, but I think this is already a good stepping stone. Starting your legal journey, you already, before you started opening a textbook, know a lot more than any other students that did not get the wealth of knowledge that was shared today. So I just want to say to the Regenesis Business School as well, keep up this kind of work and just exposing your students to more options and just the wealth of knowledge that is out there from different legal practitioners. So well done, guys.
Thank you very much, Advocate Kundi. We are honored to have you join us today, as with all of our other fantastic panelists, and we really do appreciate your time. So thank you to everyone once again, and please remember these webinars will be running every 2 weeks on a Wednesday, and we'd love to see you there for every single one. Come and join us, debate with us, bring that insight to the fore, and don't be afraid to ask questions. So thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure hosting you today, and I look forward to collaborating with you all in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alison.